Hello, everyone. It's Alex, and it's been a while. Why has it been a while? Well, stories, I tell you. I've been teaching a couple of different classes in SQL and in C Sharp, so that's kept me busy. Um, Working with kids and family, that's kept me busy, and obviously, church always keeps me busy. So, haven't had much time to post new video or code to my GitHub, but we're going to change that today because the class is over. Students did well. If you're one of the students in the class I just got done teaching, very proud of you. Keep up the work. And as always, if you need anything, let me know. So, as usual, my full disclaimer, I am not the greatest in the world. I am not the best in the world. If you have anything constructive to tell me, post it in the comments below. Don't come over here throwing salt or anything else like that because we're all trying to learn from each other. So, so we'll go there and then also go to codeblack.com, sign up, get busy, get involved. They have a Facebook page. Go check that out as well. And yeah, so that's my disclaimer. That's my plug. So today, in the title of the video, we're going to talk a little bit about subqueries and some filtering or dupe removal. So what I have done is I have created, and I'll get this ready to go. There we go. I have created a database. Well, I'm not created a database. What I did was I downloaded a database called Pubs, and this is the what's the name of that? Northwinds database or something like that. I can't remember which one it is. It's a free database that Microsoft came up with, and it's been around for a very, very long time. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use that database today, and we're going to learn a couple of different concepts. The first concept we're going to learn is we're going to learn the concept of removing duplicates from our data. To do that, we need to have a table that has duplicate rows in the table. So what I am going to do is I'm going to bring up, let me close a couple of my tabs here. Boom there, and boom there, and boom there. And I'll open up that tab there and close this tab there. Go to Google. And I was already on it. And I'm going to, I like the dark mode. Let me turn the dark mode off here. It's kind of weird. Dark. Here, stay dark. Oh, it has a dark mode over here too. So I'll turn that off here. There we go. Nice and bright. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to a nice little site called Mockaroo. And I use this quite often when I need some really quick, really simple data for testing. So go to Mockaroo, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with something very simple, and let's see here. Yeah, I think that might work. Let me change a few of these. Let me get rid of gender. Let me get rid of IP address. And I'm going to add another field. First name, last name, email. And then we'll put address. No, let's not make address here. Let's see what we have to choose from. So we've got quite a few things we can choose from here. We'll just use some basic stuff here. And I will use a date time field here. And I'll give it like, I don't know, we'll give it like a year range. This is June 10th. And we're going to go to today. I'm going to give it a SQL datetime format. None will be blank, and we'll just call this some date time, something like that. Okay. And then let's just create some ID fields here. ID. With this first name, last name, and then email address. Okay. So what I can do is I can make this a SQL, and the table name is going to be test data table, something like that, real simple. And I'll just include a create table because I don't have that there, and I will click download data, and it will save here for me. And I can open this up in SSMS. And what that will do is it will create a data table. Now, since I want to have duplicate rows in this table, I'm not going to create a primary key. Primary key will eliminate duplicate rows in the table. Okay? So, I'm going to go ahead and run this query and say execute. And you see rows affected. I'm going to delete this because, or I'm just going to comment it out because I no longer need it because I've gone ahead and created the table. Now what I'm going to do, you see these little squigglies that popped up here. It's because it's thinking there's not a table with that. So to prevent that from happening, go to Edit, IntelliSense, and just refresh local cache, or just Control-Shift-R, and that will go away once you refresh that. I'm going to insert these rows 2 more times, 1 and 2. Okay, I'm going to open up a new query, and in this new query, go back to this table. I'm going to query the table, and I'm going to look for this first person, Emily Norwood. I'm going to say select from our mock table, or test data table, where last name is, and I'll just copy this right here. I'm having a senior moment, and it's getting late. Okay, so that's going to be last name there. I need to move that over. And first name. Ooh. First name equals. Okay. So what that's going to do, if I run this query, you'll see I have 3 rows of data in the table now. Okay. Why is that important? Well, I don't have a primary key, so I can insert duplicate rows in the table. You may have a table where you want duplicate rows. I don't know. It's just not the best practice because it can make your table be very, very large. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate the duplicate rows in this table and only give us the distinct rows back. There's multiple ways we can do this. One of the easiest ways to do this is to just say select distinct, and what that will do, and let me move my head over to up here and make myself smaller so you can see. What that will do is it will only give us the actual distinct rows back. So it'll give us one row of each. It'll give us a unique row for each row, basically. It'll just give us the first one that matches. Okay, so if I do that, I get 1 row back. Now, I inserted rows into that table, and there should be about 3,000 rows in the table. So let me see here. Actually, it might be 4,000. Select count star from test data table. Right? Yep, I've got 3,000 rows in the table. So I can also do this on all the rows in the table and get just 1,000 rows back. And what that does is it gives me just each unique row back. So that's one of the fastest ways to do it. Okay. Sometimes you may not want to do that. Sometimes you may want to make it a little bit more complex with a subquery. Okay. So that's the other way I'm going to do this. I'm going to use something called row number in a minute here. But before I do that, let me make sure I'm covering what I'm supposed to be covering here. Yep. Okay. So we're going to do, so we just removed duplicate rows from our data set that way. It's one of the fastest ways to do it, but sometimes you may not want to do it that way. You may want to get a little bit more complex and join other tables together and all that kind of stuff to get a very unique data set where you get the data back. So what you can do is we're going to do a subquery. And it's going to be kind of similar to what we've got here, but we're going to basically create a query inside of a query. That's all a subquery is. So it's a nested query. So what we're going to do is we're going to say select, and we're going to start looking at the actual column names here. First, we need to find duplicate rows in the table. One way to do that is to say, use a function called row number over. Row number over, and it's partition by, and let's say it's going to be the ID. ID, order by ID. Let's say I want the first name too. And the last name. Because it's going to be a very unique key right there. Okay, order by ID, first name, last name. And what this select row number allows you to do is it allows you to create a column there and basically make another column where it's going to count the number of rows each time it changes. So I can say as row number, or row num. Let's say I want first name, last name from test data table. If I run this query, you'll see that every time the first and the last name changes and the ID changes, then what happens is, and the ID is going to be the same. So like if I put ID in here, you'll see that the ID is going to be the same. So I didn't really need to put that in my query because it's going to be the same ID there. Okay. So I can actually take ID out of there. And I'm just going to do it on the first name and last name. That'll give me what I need there. There we go. So what's happening is you'll see that every time the first and the last name changes, it resets my row number. So these first three rows here are duplicate rows in my table. Okay, so you're saying, okay, so how can I use that to get rid of that? Okay, what you do is you create a subquery. So this is my first query. Now I want to make my second query. So I'm going to put opening parameter on that one, and opening parameter on this one. I'm going to call this subq, sub q. And then here, what I'm going to say is I'm going to select, and IntelliSense should let you do this. I'm going to say from down here. I'm going to say select first name. There we go. Last name. And row num. And let's throw ID in there. And what that's doing, it's creating a subquery that I can query from. So I run my inner query, get my row set, my data set, and then I can query that data set on top of that. And then I can sort it and do everything I want to it. So how do I get rid of the duplicate? So like if I query this right here, it's going to give me the same amount of data here back. So it gives me 3,000 rows of duplicate data. The way I get rid of this is really simple. I put a where clause on here, where row num is less than or equal to 1. That will give me all of my single records back. So I have now my 1,000 rows. And you can see that I put it in a different order. So let's just put it in the same order that the table's in here. So I'll put ID here. So that's another way to get rid. That's another way to get rid of duplicate data in your table query as well. And then I can take that outer value set and I can sort it where I need to now. Order by ID, ASC. And now that will take them and put them in the correct order that is in my table. And then finally, since I really don't need the row num, I'm only going to sort on it, so I don't need it in my display set that I'm returning back to a person. There we go. So now in both ways, I've gone ahead. If I run this, I'll have 2,000 rows back. Here's my 2,000 rows. And then I guess I gotta put in my email address and some date time here. And I can put that there, email address and some date time. And if I rerun that again, you can see I've got the exact same data back. I've got 1,000 rows here and I've got 1,000 rows here, and they're in the same order as this one here. They've got the same column names as well. So that's running a subquery, and it's also removing duplicate rows out of your data set. Again, all the subquery is just a query that's nested inside of another query. Why would you use a subquery? Well, this is one reason why you want to use a subquery, to get rid of duplicate rows if you don't want to use distinct. Okay. You can also do it this way if you want to join on another table. Now you can use distinct that way too, but they might give you slightly different results as well. So let's say I wanted to join on tables in here. I can return data that way, right? I can use outer replies and cross replies. You can do the same thing up here in a way as well, but the value sets may be slightly different based on how your query is going to run. And one query will be more efficient than the other query, maybe. This query here, if we look at this query and we do an execution plan on this one, if we look at this query, we can see that, let me minimize my little sidebar here, and I hit by properties, so I think it's F6, nope, F4, there we go, and let me do that again, execution plan. we go. I'm going to hit F4 this time. So this query ran in less than a second. So here's this query right here. It says here's the elapsed time of this query. We can also see that our sort is taking a little bit of time there, and the cost is not, and it's fairly high, but it's a sort. Now if we run the same execution plan on this one, we see that it's slightly faster, but the sort is it's got more cost to it, right? Although this particular query would only run, this query would run in 0.2 milliseconds, 0.24 milliseconds. This query, if I reselect this one here and run the execution plan on that one and click my properties, this one runs in slightly more time because it's got a few more steps that it has to take. So if I take that and paste that in there, that's the time running allotted on that one there. And then this one here, that's the time running allotted on this one here. Okay, so you're thinking it's not a lot of time, right? And then also what I'm doing is if I do this, let's see if that makes a difference too. See how that increases the time there on this one, on that run. And then if I do the same thing again on this one, it's faster. So in this instance, the distinct is running faster on average than the subquery is. So that matters. The way it also matters is what you're getting back in your data set as well, like I said. So at times you may need to use a subquery based on what you're getting back in your data set, right? If I started putting joins and all that kind of stuff, we'd see more of a time difference and a performance difference on these. But it is what it is. So that's how you use subqueries. That's one way to use a subquery. That's also how you use like a row number function there. And then also I use the distinct. You have to determine as data scientist which one you're going to use. Are you going to use the subquery, or are you going to use the data table distinct? Again, you have to determine that on your own. And again, like I said, analyzing the data and coming up with the queries that you need. Sometimes if you're loading rows into a table and you have duplicate queries or duplicate rows in that table in the file, and you don't have a chance to look at and parse out duplicate rows in the file that you're loading into a database, this is a great way to do it, the subquery way. If you're looking at a temporary table that you've created and you are loading that temporary table into an actual live table, that's another way to use a subquery, especially if you've got to do more filtering and comparison on that. Distinct works in very simple situations and some more complex situations. Like I said, you have to determine which one you're going to use. So, short video today, but it's one of the videos that's been a long time coming. So, again, peace, praying for you, and hope everything finds you well. And this query will be loaded to my repo, my GitHub repo. I will put a link in the description of the GitHub repo that you can look at. Until next time,